Mm. Haven't seen you for a little while, Emma.
Yeah, it's a lot going on here, Vince. I'm just like deep dive into trauma. So I just feeling like awakening is completely out of the window and just like so deeply just like digging into looking for oil.
Yeah, you look different. You look like you've been traumatized. Yeah.
Like I had a lot, like really a lot of somatic release this morning. So it was like I woke up at nighttime and there was like fear coming up, like in guts and tummy, cramping, and then shaking, cramping, shaking, cramping, shaking, and then was like a big release, like body start to shake, shaking, shaking, shaking. I fall asleep and then I woke up in the morning and I could feel, like my arms completely like limp, like lifeless.
Yeah.
Like no, like completely just like, but I was lying in bed, like I couldn't like, I wasn't standing up, so I couldn't feel that. Then I just was lying there in bed and I start to feel like sensations here in upper arm. So I sat like in bed and I just start to go with that, like what that feels in the body like. And I just really felt like you want to push away. So I was doing that, like movement, pushing away. And then there was like a lot of arm shaking, like upper body shaking and just like different way that settled down. Then I just sat down in the bed and I wanted just to stretch, just like swinging movement and just stretching and stretching and swinging and stretching. And more shaking was just coming up and like, and then like it was different, like, like I start to hit bed and just, like, no, and the head just goes like this. And there's no stories at all, completely, just no stories. It's just like all body memory. And then I went downstairs making toast and I can feel, like arms start to go like this, like trembling. And I just, like notice that and just like more shaking. And I'd start to go, like the protecting yourself and just like different kind of movements. So yeah, there's a lot going on today.
Right. So did this start before?
You see, like when I had that initial shift, that's my initial, in that time there was a lot of body shake, like 3-4 minutes, like a whole body was just shaking. And then I had another few times, like some shakes were coming up. So I'm just like, maybe that is just the way this is releasing itself.
What?
And
course.
I'm just like, it's very strange. Like I'm looking at my hands and, like I can't recognize they are my hands. It's not like the stranger hands, but I just like, just very strange feeling now.
Mm.
So yeah. Like,
So when did this first start happening? How long?
okay, last year May. I remember like I was in my partner's house. I was sitting having my cup of tea, just completely relaxing, tuning into that relaxed music and just, like sitting in the presence. Just, like sitting, tuning into presence. And next moment I remember I just felt like something stopped, like I stopped. And next moment I was just like, and then I was crying and laughing and crying and laughing, like a lot of like that energetic release. And next thing, like all body just was like shaking for 3-4 minutes, like very intense shake. And then like my boyfriend, he really just freaked out, like because he didn't know what is happening. But I just felt like once that's shaking stopped, I just felt like it's like very deep okayness, like you just know you're okay. And I'm saying him like, I'm okay, I'm perfectly okay, I'm best than I ever been. And I don't even know who I am. And he says to me, you're Anna. And I start to laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And then another few times that shake just happened. I remember one day I was watching through the window and I see clothes, like lying, like dancing, like on the wind, and I just like, oh my gosh, that looks so alive, and then my eyes start to like blinking, blinking, blinking. And the head starts shaking and like whole body shaking, shaking, shaking like this. It's happened a few times. So
Yeah. So that time you saw something that you might say set you off, or
I think so. I
yeah.
think so,
And
yeah.
what about the other times? Was there anything that set you off with them?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I just like sometimes I just feel like something it just feels like there is some kind of like energetic movement in the body, and
Mm.
it just releases itself through shaking. And like I'm not making any stories, it just happens, like whatever happens, it happens. It doesn't
Yeah,
affect me
yeah,
any
yeah,
bad
yeah.
way. There is no any like wow, any like there's nothing. It's just like something happens, something just moving.
Yeah. So this time, how long ago did this one start? Was that just this morning or before that?
Um, this one started like last night. Like okay, okay, Tuesday night there was a meeting with Skillabay Inquiries, one of their guides, and they do that, like you bring your mom and dad, and then there was connection inquiry. I love them the way they are. I can connect to them the way they are. My mom and dad, they passed away, like, but I just could feel like a strong resistance, like a wave coming up. So I just tuned into that, and that was like a big, like shake and cramp release. And then once that was gone, I could start, like feeling like tingly sensation here, and that's feeling of aloneness, like loneliness and abandonment. So I was sitting and soothing that inner child, like really just soothing and soothing and soothing her.
Mhm.
And then I asked that lady, like what this could mean here. She said maybe you can expand space for that to move. So I did that. And I remember there was something about welcoming all this energies in. And once I heard this welcoming, I could see like a door open, and there is that like very like timid child standing there. But it
Say that again, like what?
like timid child,
Yes.
like very,
Yeah.
yeah, like very scared, like a lot of trust issues. And I just could see, like there's like a lot of that child went through a lot of abuse. It has like a lot of trust issues, and it needs like very, very gentle approach, like a lot of patience. You just be present and
Yeah.
just like just allow it, just don't
So
come
so
closer.
so this time you saw this this was an aftermath from the Killaby inquiries when you invited your parents in.
Hmm.
That's what started it off for you this time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you see, like I have a problem with my left shoulder since childhood. I had like multiple dislocations and like surgeries and things like this. So my both shoulders like suffer. So next day when I was sitting at work, I could feel that like a heat here.
Mm.
And following day when I was going to work, I just could feel like a dread came up, like a strong, strong, like fears, like and like not wanting to go to work. But like I have to go. So I went on, and I had a meltdown. I just like literally just broke down in tears, and there's no any apparent reason. I was just felt so helpless. And oh, my shoulder started hurt, like I really
So
couldn't.
this was today, was it?
It was Wednesday, Thursday. It was on Thursday.
So
So
before the Killaby thing.
Kilo Bay was on Tuesday night. So Wednesday I had this heat moving
Wednesday, yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, and Thursday I had that very, very strong fear. So yesterday I could, yeah, like from Thursday to Friday night, there was a lot of fears coming up, just fears and
Yeah,
fears
yeah.
all night. I was waking up and some fears coming up.
So
Um,
you could say that this was something that started after the Killaby inquiry
yeah,
and bit of fluctuation, but it's basically
Yeah,
continued since then. Yeah. So
yeah,
was
yeah.
there, do you have any memory of that a shoulder dislocation as a result of any of your parents of that?
I can't remember that once. Like few years ago when I was really just asking question, like why is this pain? Why is this pain? A picture came up when I was like about 9, 10, and I fell like this, but like I had a fracture in the bone.
Mm.
And dislocation happened like few years later, but I don't know, maybe there was
Yeah,
something
yeah,
prior
yeah,
to that.
maybe not. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or-
Okay. So, so the story that's happening here is that you've let the genie out of the bag, out of the bottle a bit, and it's kind of coming out with a bit of a rush. It's coming out a bit too fast to be coped with in a well, let's not say comfortable way, but yeah, it's because your body reactions are so big, that's probably body memory more than mental memory, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And of course, memory doesn't have to be accurate. Memory is always constructed. So, it could be metaphorical or it could be actual. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference because we respond to it regardless of what what it actually was. We respond to what that memory is. Yeah. So my thoughts are that it's great. It's great that it's coming out, but let's not have it come out in such a way that it disrupts our life completely. We need
Mhm.
to kind of slow it down a little bit. So I would say best not to go back to the Killerby inquiry thing just yet. Let's wait till the things
Mhm.
calm down a little bit and do it slower, because there's obviously a huge amount there. There's a volcano waiting to erupt. And we need to allow it to come out. We want it out, but we don't want it all at once, if you know what I mean. We
Mhm.
want
Mhm.
it to come out a little bit slower, yeah. And it's good stuff. It's
It
painful,
is
yeah,
definitely is, Vince, because
yeah,
what I have noticed, like I'm also listening a lot to Peter Levine,
yeah. So yeah,
and
you're jumping in. You're really in there, kind of going flat out. Yeah, um,
completely
yeah,
hate
yeah.
them.
So
Uh,
let's let it come out in its own time, rather than have it come out to the point where we can only defend from it. We don't want to defend from it. We want to allow it to evaporate, so to speak. So we need it to come out in a more, I won't say controlled way, but less of an eruption, so to speak.
mhm.
Yeah.
What I have noticed, my hands are always feel so freezing, like I'm always been like freezing and cold.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
lacking of energy. But today, after all this like releases, I feel like quite hot, like very
Yeah, yeah,
warm and like
yeah,
aliveness.
yeah.
There's so much aliveness in the body.
Right. Well, see, a lot of that stuff was stuff that was being held down, held in and held down, right, and suppressed, so to speak. And now that heat, of course, is, because it's starting to move. It's coming out. Yeah. Um,
Mm,
but do trust these actions. They're telling you something. You're pushing away,
mhm.
defending yourself. That's telling you something. We don't need to know what.
Yeah,
It's enough to let the body express itself. That's really
yeah.
really a big thing. Yeah. But yeah, a little slower would be good.
It's like, funny because once I, like notice how body just wants to push and just push away. And I remember like every time I felt like hurt, emotionally hurt by people, there was this mental push away, push away, push away. But that was all a mental. And I didn't realize, like that's actually body is
Yes.
speaking through the
Yeah.
mind. Yeah, and now when I've seen that like physical movement, it's exactly what was happening in the head all these years.
Yeah. Well, you've got the tools now. You've definitely got the tools. You know, you've got a good attitude towards this kind of stuff. So you're not, you know, as much as it's unpleasant, it's not frightening you to the point where you're stopping it from happening. But we just need to let it out in a better way. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Slowing down. No, definitely not frightening, because I just allow body to do what that wants
Yeah.
to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the way it wants to move. Like if you see people in psychiatric clinics, you know, like they just doing different kind of movements,
Yeah. Their
that's the
body
way it's coming
expression.
out.
That's right. Yeah. 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 Good. Have you been doing much crying?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing on your face. Your face is a bit puffy, I think, not more than normal, and that's probably from that. Yeah, and that's the same thing. You know, that crying can be, you know, it's not pleasant, but it can be sweet. You know, it can have a
No, it's also like releasing.
releasing. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, and that's good stuff to do as well. Yeah. Now there's a bit of an issue with, you know, you make yourself go to work and then you have a meltdown at work. Maybe it's more appropriate to have a sickie sometimes, you know, instead of making yourself go into situations where it's much more valuable and more important for you to be able to let things out than to hold things down in order to be able to go to work. That's, you know, yeah. Wow. Oh, it's big, isn't it? It's
It is. It is. When it really is. You know, like I say, a few people, anything about awakening, what I thought that is going to be like, nothing like that. And everything what is happening, I could never even imagine that is going to go this way.
Yeah. So some people like, for me, you know, I didn't go through anything like that because I went through it all years ago, and in over a long period of time, I did so much therapy of different kinds that when I got to awakening, there was really not much left to go through. Whereas those who haven't gone through it, awakening can let it all out with a bit of a rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
It
probably
really
what's
feels
happened.
like you say, like you let the genie out of a bottle.
Yeah. But look, one and a really important thing, you know, you can email me or contact me, or there are other people in this group and other groups that you are there to support you. You know, you can't expect your partner to understand what's going on. He can, you know, he's going to want to stop it. You know, that's the nature of what most people are going to want to do. Well, we don't want to stop it. We just want to let it come out in a bit, you know, not such a huge way, kind of thing.
He actually does. Yeah. He says, like, why are you doing that? Can you just not do that? Can you, you know, like, can you not go there? Can you not do that? I said, but, you know, like, it's going there. Like, you know, it's not like
Yeah.
what I am doing. It's just going there itself.
Okay. How do you get the message across to him that it's better out than in, and that it's not going to end up in disaster? That's the thing. See, he has stories that it's going to be disastrous, and of course, you know, if you went to a psychiatrist, the first thing he's going to do is try and stop it. He's going to give you,
Definitely.
you know, or whatever. Yeah. Or they'll put you in a straitjacket to try and stop it, kind of thing. So
It definitely would be a case, Vince. If any normal human being, you know, normal human being, average, you know, normal human beings saw this, what was happening this morning, definitely psychiatric clinic.
yeah. So you've got to be in a situation where that's not a threat as well, you know. So you do need to get some message across to your partner that it's okay, that it is under control, you know. So to relax him, so he doesn't have a bit of a panic about it, and obviously the best thing is not to do it in front of him. If you feel it coming on, go by yourself somewhere, go away, you know, go into your bedroom or whatever. Yeah. Because
I'm lucky we
it's
don't
under,
live together, so
sorry.
I'm lucky we don't live together, so I'm in my own
Yeah.
bed in my own room.
Right. Yeah. Go home and do it by yourself. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If it starts to happen when you're with him. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Only thing what I worry sometimes, like my boys, I'm living with my boys, and because there is a lot of like noises coming out as well.
yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, like a loud crying, or just like I'm just sitting there, like head just goes like no, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Different kind of things.
Yeah.
So
If you
I'm
can't,
afraid of
yeah,
scaring them.
sure. Maybe put some loud music on or something as a way of covering up for them. It's hard, isn't it? That one. Yeah. Yeah, but you got to
Mommy is
tell them
okay.
as well.
Mommy.
Tell them that it's okay. Tell them that
Mm,
you're make up a story. You're practicing for a play or something like that.
that's a very good idea.
Make something up. Yeah, so that it's okay. Yeah, yeah. And of course, even in the midst of all of that, if they turn up, you can find a smile for them. It doesn't have to be. You can just interrupt it, and you can do that. You can interrupt it
Yeah, yeah.
and then go back to it later. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, big stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
But you can email me or PM me or anything at any time if you want, if
Thank you very much, Vince.
yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because sometimes it feels, like I really need the support at times when, like when I feel like very, very down and nothing yet releasing, and I'm just like confused and scared. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, that's
Thank
the
you.
worst state, to be in a suppressed fear state. That's what we don't want to happen.
Mhm.
That's why there's value in letting it out. Yeah. Yeah. Phew.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, my heart goes
Thank
out
you
to
so
you.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. How did you, how, how, how did you respond to that, Jitka?
Yeah. Did you call my name? Did you talk to me?
Yes, I just
Hi.
wondered how you responded to all
Hi.
that we just went through.
Yeah, I wrote her in the chat. I thought it was just for her.
Oh, so you weren't listening?
No, I was listening. I was listening the whole time, but I replied to her in a chat. I wrote her a message to Anne, but because I'm training currently as a KI facilitator, as a kilobit inquiries facilitator, and what I just wanted to say is that maybe it's the KI is divided into three parts. The first, it's called dimensions, the first, second, and third dimension. And the third dimension is what she has been doing, and that is the repression work. But unable to do the repression work without getting dysregulated, getting the system completely out of whack, is the prerequisite is to be really comfortable with the first and second dimension. One needs to be able to sit with these energies and know that it's not dangerous, and that's what the 1 and 2D is doing. So my recommendation for Anne was to just stay with the first and second dimension and avoid the repression work for the moment. The time will come when she is able to go there and look into the deepest trauma,
Okay.
the deepest repression.
My impression from Anna's description was that she's okay with it. She's not frightened of that. She's yeah. It's just that it's absolutely huge. Yeah.
It can be smoother sailing. It can be smoothened out a little
Can be
bit. But
smoother.
that's the same thing as what you said. Yeah, take a bit of rest and perhaps not go very hard on the repression work, and maybe do some self-regulation technique, which is also described in the KI system, and perhaps even that ERE tension release exercises. Is that correct name? Something of that nature. That was just my comment from what I have seen so far within the KI.
Okay, yeah.
Only thing I'm going to mention, I am not like intentionally like doing anything. I'm just going with whatever coming up. Like I'm not like looking for something to come up. But you know, like if something happens in the life itself and it's causing all this stuff, then I'm just sitting with this feeling and does this working with that. So I think that is a good thing.
For sure. Yeah.
Because I think
Are
if
you
I
able to
start,
work
like, sorry?
Are you able to work with any facilitator? That can be also a nice thing to do within the Kilobi inquiries. Like in one-on-one session, there are also people which are like in training, which can work for free with you. Yeah, so there are some options.
Oh, I didn't realize that because I only saw them prices, you know, like what's there, and then prices are just like I can't afford that. So I thought like, okay, I'll do it on my own. But
I know.
maybe I could, you know, like get in touch with you, and
Yeah.
I'll send you my phone number, and then maybe we could have, you know, like a wee chat
Yeah.
about,
Definitely. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I really find the Kilobi inquiries are very, very helpful.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely help you with something. Perhaps as I say, since I'm in training, I'm not certified. I don't take paid anything, so it's just we can have a chat as you. If you
Thank
like.
you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You could swap info in the chat as well. You could,
Mhm.
yeah, be a good way to do that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's amazing how the body tends to both store and express stuff that we that's out of our conscious mind stuff. Yeah.
And the most interesting, you know, like there is no stories whatsoever, completely. This here is just like, okay, whatever happens, that happens. I'm not getting in. I'm just allowing. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
normally it would be like a lot of a headspace. And now it's just like completely, it's just like body, it's just like all body.
Mm, mm.
And there is no even need to know like why, what does that mean? Where this is coming from? It's just like whatever.
Yeah.
I just like another wave and another wave, and it's just like it feels beautiful somehow.
Mm. You are beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. How are you, Ramiz?
I'm vibrating.
Yeah. You can I was thinking of you as Anna was telling me this, and thinking that, yeah, your body is very successful at holding things down, isn't it? That that vibrating is your body saying, you know, let me out, let me out.
Yeah.
Mm. And the crazy good thing is we don't have any control over this stuff, you know. It's going to do what it's going to do. Yeah.
I would like to think of it that this energy is rewiring my system.
Well, I agree. I think it does. There is definitely a shift happening there as well. Just the recognition of that something's going on there is part of what happens with that. That brain will rewire for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was looking the other day, or I was just reading a news feed, and there was an article by some neurologist who was saying of course, under an MRI machine, but they could figure out whether you were right politically on the right, conservative, or more on the left, because it actually is opening up different parts of the brain. So the nervous system is constantly, you know, I guess it's just constantly updating, but when there are the trauma things going on, then it's in a sort of feedback loop pattern that gets stuck. So it can't be so adaptable, it seems to me. I mean, that's a little bit the reasoning that I've come up with.
Yeah, well,
And that
they have discovered that when fear is predominant, it operates on the back part of the brain, the more primitive part of the brain, and then by simply being aware of that going on, we start to rewire the cognitive frontal part of the brain. Yeah, and it can shift. Then we can lose the predominance in one area and shift it to another area. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been looking at my reactivity that can arise regarding listening to others, especially if, I had a situation with my daughter and she called, and it was funny because I just had actually 20 minutes of exercise with electromagnetic stimulation. So all my muscles had been having shocks for 20 minutes. It's my short way to keep fit. You can do it in 20 minutes instead of an hour and 20 minutes. So I came back and she was allowing herself to have an outburst of all the things that were going wrong. And you know, but I kept interrupting, saying, you know, look at what you're projecting, or look at this, and not helpful, not a nice mother at all. And I felt so awful afterwards. I thought, oh God, why can't I just be the perfect person who's sitting there listening, just listening, but there's something stirring up, always wanting to find a solution for the problem that seemed to be being presented to me. But then afterwards, I took it. When we finished the call, I took it to my little lab and sort of sat there really with just her face and the energy that was remaining. And it was interesting because it really felt like it was a blunted sort of jackhammer. You know what I mean? Those road where they, hammering type of energy down, in the upper part of my spine. It was sort of, it was just very strange sensations. So I just sort of sat with that for a while, and so that's my latest sort of project to find, because it was something that happens when they're stirred up, that it's very hard for me just to sort of sit, and especially because it's my daughter. If it would have been somebody else, I probably would say this is all a story, I don't need to get involved emotionally or in a reactive way. So, but it was a very weird sensation because it was so sort of tight and so centralized just down the back, nothing really emotional in the front. I couldn't name it. It was just like a weird pulsing tight sensation. So, and there was a lot of I guess sighing and things, as so it's something that is unwinding.
So would you say it was in the spine?
Well, either in the spine or in the muscles running down the back.
Right.
But my tendency always was, when from a child, I think there was sort of a difficulty in a way of listening and then sort of rationalizing through. There was always a tendency sort of to jump ahead. It was like an automatic response system that was going on in the body, but that then obviously how that developed, whether it was just the wiring of the body or due to whatever, that became a
Yeah, I get you.
reactive
Yep.
situation. So, for example, in the past, when I'm driving and then I would stop and ask for directions, I couldn't retain too many like left, rights and lefts.
Mhm.
It was like, this is too much. I've already got to get started, because otherwise I don't know what the thought was. It was like, it's too much. I can't take any more of this data in, you know.
Mm. But that's not what was happening with your daughter, was it?
Sorry?
That's not what was happening with your daughter?
No, with her, but it was this reactive response of wanting to get her to stop and point out what, you know, from my perspective, what I was seeing was happening. But she was,
when you were talking, I had a picture there, and you can say this has got no relevance, or maybe it rings a bell. I don't know. I had a picture of Atlas with the world on his shoulders. Yeah.
well, there's still quite a lot of I guess in a way, actually, that I can relate to that, especially with my second daughter. And we came to Europe. We lived in the States, and I came to Europe 7 years ago. And it was all sort of organized, planned, and everything was fine for a while. But when things go wrong with her, I get a sense of like I deserted her, you know, because it's one thing when my other daughter moved to Germany, that was her choice, you know, life took her there. But this daughter, she wanted to sort of stay put. She's like, I want it in her same little area. And so I think there's still work to do on that, even though I spent a lot of time on that feeling of having abandoned her, and that I'm not there to help her, to fix her. And she was always the one who needed more
You need to be strong.
support, because she's also pretty reactive to things, and she's found life more difficult than her sister. So yeah, so there was all that going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a temptation to find something that fits, and we can easily ignore what the body's trying to tell us when we try and find something that makes sense, so to speak, you know. And these things often are not sensible in any you know, traditional.
What I'm finding so much before is, and also this energy was moving down in the back, but I found that, you know, when I started just over a year ago doing, working with 4 and 5, everything was very much in the front, and sometimes there was a rise of energy of reactivity in the back, but it was never very pronounced. And I'm finding, and I'm always been in a way a forward person, you know, yeah, energy forward. So in some ways, I think it's a becoming more aware of energies present in the back that I hadn't had the awareness of before.
Maybe it's time.
Yeah, exactly. That's what because there's been one or two other things that have happened. And the funny thing is, it just seems pure energy, because I can't really relate. It's just energy I want to get away from, but I can't relate necessarily anything emotional attached to it. You know, it seems more, it's uncomfortable and it's there, but there's no, it doesn't bring fear, it doesn't bring sadness, it doesn't even bring anger. It's very curious.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I get it. See, my feelings, then once again, I don't know where these come from or whether they're right or not, but you get this spontaneous kind of impression, and with you, I get the feeling that you're I don't know how to put it. You're ahead of yourself with your understanding. Your understanding is leading your feelings a bit too far. And so consequently, it's like you would say, well, I've got no reason to feel that. So why am I, it must be something else. Kind of pass over because you see enough to I don't know how to put it. I don't, it's, and it may be totally wrong as well. It's just that maybe your body hasn't caught up with your understanding, not understanding, I don't mean that like that.
I think it's, especially it's the back of the body.
Yes, yeah.
It's the back of the body, because the
No, I
front,
get that
you know,
feeling
talk
that-
about if I think about my daughter, that daughter, in a different perspective, not when I'm engaging with her directly, this was an engagement, but when I just sort of bring her to mind, I can feel, you know, a lot of emotion, mostly sort of sadness.
Yes, yeah. But
and
this is
things,
at the
all
front
that's
again.
present.
You're feeling this, and so you're
All
at the front
this,
again.
all
Yeah.
this I feel.
But at the back,
But at
you've
the
got
back,
to be strong. You've got to be strong. You've got
yeah,
weight to
exactly.
carry. You know, you've
Yeah.
got it with your husband, you've got it with your daughter. And
I did notice that actually, that was something after that sort of like tensing. There's been a huge rigidity. I mean, I do have, my structure is very rigid.
yes, look at the
and-
knuckles. Look
but
at
I
the
did
knuckles.
notice that after that, there was a sort of a softening of, before there was, I would say, almost a defiant, you could call it a defiant resolve or something like that.
Yes,
And
stiff
I
spine,
noticed
stiff.
in the energy, I would have called it that, like nothing's going to break it, you know, you can, type of thing. I'm sure that's not true if I was tortured or something, but it felt like that. But then after that, that sort of feeling with that sort of, that energy had loosened a little bit. It wasn't so really sort of like nothing's going to break me type of, I've got to, it was so I think that that's right, Vince. It's sort of like, okay, now we're ready to sort of look at
Yes,
at
that
this.
loosening is allowing you to get in touch with the
Yeah,
back part
yeah.
a bit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I have tried, I haven't had worked with a facilitator, but I have done some work with TRE, but it always moves up to about the thoracic spine, mid waist, and then there isn't anything, there isn't any more movement. So sort of like the blockage of the energy flow is.
Yeah. And it's the upper part where you need that stiff spine to.
Well, and also for the energy to flow, to be able to flow up and down, so it doesn't sort of get stuck, which I think that's where.
But we've got to allow it. We can't force it.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I can't even think of, I can think of situations. If I think of being in a situation, especially a hearing situation where you're supposed to be, you know, where I'm sitting and listening, and if something would be triggering that I would want to, I wouldn't be able to hear anymore, something switches off and then agitation arises. So it's trying to find that gap of what's going on. So it's a real, quite a good mystery to work with.
And the good thing about it, and you probably know this kind of stuff, is it's not a case of I want to say fixing it, but that's a bit too gross. It's not a case of pushing past it and changing it, but rather understanding what the message is it's trying to tell us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If we
Yeah.
say something we don't want to hear, it's because we're not ready to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or otherwise it's like, yeah, I don't want to listen to your view. I don't want to,
Yes.
yeah, sort of like gaslighting maybe of other people or, yeah.
It's yeah, but it's about you. So it's
Yeah, no, it is about me, but it's the tendency. So I don't want to hear what you have to say.
yes.
Um,
And because if I do
Because.
hear you, what's going to happen? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Why is it so awful?
Yeah. And
But also,
because and this is what I was talking about before with you. You kind of know that no matter what it is, it's not going to be that awful. But that's a kind of way of
yeah,
not
I
going
get
there.
you.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And it's funny though, because my mother does exactly the same thing. And she will always say to me, okay, let's stop this conversation right now. Let's stop it, you know. And so it's very much a trait, maybe that
Yeah.
I picked up also. Yeah.
And what she's doing is
Oh, yeah, yeah. With her, and it's with her, it's excruciating actually being around her, because she'll close her eyes and she'll just sort of switch off and leave. And
yeah.
you couldn't have conversations with her. I
Yeah.
mean, she's a bit
That's
better
her
now.
protection. Yeah. And
And so it's
of course, we
sort of-
always have this thing of, are we going to turn into our parent?
we do.
Yeah, whether
Sort
we
of.
like it or not.
Sort of traits.
Yeah. So because we've learned, I mean, they're the ones that they've been our
Yeah.
teachers for such a long time, haven't they? We've learned to do
Yeah.
things the way they show us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all good, isn't it? Wonderful. Isn't it?
Oh,
What a
it
great
is, because
adventure, right? Yeah.
it's the exploration. It's just so, it's fascinating.
Yeah. It's better than anything that can happen on Netflix, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Today, I was listening to my sister. She was complaining about my dad. And for the first time, I felt compassion for my dad. I was always on her side. And this time I almost felt my dad's pain. And it was like I was taking the hit for him in a way, like she was complaining about him, but it was about me somehow.
Mm.
And it was so strange. It was so, I felt um, how helpless it is.
Yeah. When you say for the first time you felt compassion for your dad, I immediately think, oh, that's a bit of a breakthrough there. There's something has shifted with that. It sounds like a big thing to me, Ramiz.
I saw that it was not his fault. And also I feel so angry. I feel
Do you feel something is being released in you?
Uh, I don't know. I can see now more clearly, I think, that it's always about me.
So would you go as far as to say the compassion you felt for your dad was also compassion you felt for you?
Yeah.
So in order to feel compassion for yourself, you must have let go something that was blocking that before. What do you think, how would you describe what the letting go was about? What did you let go of? Some judgment?
That it's not my fault.
Okay, yeah, that's a big one. Mm. So is there also forgiveness involved?
I'm not sure.
Mm. When I asked that question, I looked down and saw Helen's cup saying, nope. So tell me more about, not the details. I don't know. I don't need to know the story, but tell me about, it's not your fault. what changed that? What changed it from being your fault to not being your fault?
It's I can't think.
That's okay. We can trust what comes out without needing to know the details, and that may become clearer later. It doesn't have to be clear now. But yeah. So again, I say it sounds to me like a shift has happened. There's been a change in something.
It's it's not it's not clear for me if a shift happened. It's just
Yep.
there's so much energy and vibration.
Right. So that vibration is still there. Is it the same? Is it stronger? Is it weaker?
It's more it's more hot.
More hot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Are you traveling, Helen?
Right. Sorry, I was struggling to unmute. Not good. I'm very much up in my mind, and I can feel it, and it physically now feels like it's really sort of pulling me downwards, even though I'm in my head. But the whole of my body feels like it's been. I can feel it all in my body, and it's pulling me down. Whereas when I'm not in my head, I feel light, and life just is easier. But I'm not doing so good at the minute. I'm sort of back in the old head. It's not as bad as it used to be, and I can now recognise it, but it's still very uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do about it other than recognise it.
Mm.
And again, it's certain people that really aggravate me, and I feel really, I don't know if angry is the word, but aggravated by it. And I'm really sort of trying to open up to let them be themselves, just give them space, let them be themselves. But I'm really, really struggling with it.
Mm.
And
Sounds like
it
you're
just
making hard work of it. Is it exhausting you?
it does, yeah. Like in the past, it's not as bad as in the past, because in the past, I've been really ill with the sort of mental health, as it feels. Yeah, so I can recognise it a bit more, but yeah, it is exhausting. It is truly exhausting, yeah.
So tell me about
And
how, when you say you're in the head more, what's going on? What is happening in the head?
it's obviously judgment. It's about other people, and that shouldn't, not family, but people who I've got to know very well. I wouldn't call them friends, but got to know very well, who I meet very regularly. And it's sort of almost plotting, they're saying this, that, so they're saying this. So, and what I'm trying to get a handle on why they are like they are. And it's just, I know it's wasted energy. I know.
Absolutely.
I
You're
know.
never going to find that one out.
No,
Yeah.
no, I know. It's just totally wasted.
So they're saying things that are triggering you, or they're expressing something that's triggering you into having a judgment about them, and then you're having a judgment about the fact that you're judging them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then you're saying, well, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And I want to stop it. I don't want to be doing it. I want to get out of this. Is that right?
Yeah. Perfectly true.
Oh, wow. That's a classic definition of suffering, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It very much is. It is. But it's almost like it's entertainment, and I'm addicted to it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, well, think of something else to do something.
Right.
and I just can't. It's sort of really, it is like an addiction.
So tell me, do you get into daytime television? Do you love those soapies? You know, the Days of Our Lives, Beauty of the Beast, that kind of whatever that is, that stuff. Do you get into that?
No, because it's in my head. Don't need.
It's in real life for you, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is. It's like a soap opera. That's funny, that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
And I'm watching it all play out.
Yeah. But you've also got another story there that says it shouldn't be this way, or it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, because I know, I know the truth of it now. I know, and so why am I going back to it? What makes me go? I don't know.
So what do you think the message might be to you that that some part of you that's hooked into this stuff is trying to tell you something that you're not hearing? What do you reckon it might be? What's it trying to tell you?
Again, you've got it perfectly right. That's the key. I don't know. I don't know what it's trying to tell me. And
Yeah.
I keep saying, what's it telling me? What is it? Why am I? And it's just this. It's sort of like a fog.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a fog.
So
And
can you see that the cycle of stuff that you've got caught into here is a way of not hearing what the message is?
Oh, yes. Yes, very much so. I know there's a message, there has to be. But I don't. Actually, now I'm speaking to you, there's almost a resistance to it.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was there. I didn't think that was there before. But
So
there is.
when I ask you this, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What do you think that resistance is about?
Anger.
Anger. Okay. Okay.
That's not been there before, but straight away it was anger. Why should ...
So who's that anger directed towards? Them or you?
It's an unfairness.
Unfair.
It's not.
Okay. Yeah, that's a
It's
big one.
it's not fair that
Yep.
they should ... Yeah.
It's not fair to who?
It's not fair that I shouldn't get that attention. Yeah, it's not.
So say it in that little girl's voice. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not right, and it's not fair. You shouldn't. Oh. We shouldn't do. We shouldn't. It's not fair. I was trying to look at it the other day, and it was like that was sort of I touched on it. You know, it's not fair that you should get the attention. It's not fair. I've worked hard for your attention, and you're not giving it me, and that sort of theme, really.
Yeah.
You know, they've just come along and they've got the attention and done nothing for it.
Right. Okay. Yes. That's definitely not fair, is it?
No.
You deserve it. They don't deserve it. You deserve it. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, but that's so selfish. That's why I've been resisting
Oh, hey,
it.
come on,
It's so-
come on. Don't go down that road. That's just an escape route, that one. Stay with it. It's not fair. It's definitely not fair. They don't deserve it. They're not doing anything to deserve it. They're not even good people. They're just,
No,
yeah,
no, no, you're getting sympathy and why I'm sort of like, I've been a good girl. And it's not sort of, I've been a good girl
yeah,
and worked hard.
yep. And it goes unnoticed and they just get it without any effort whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yes.
it just, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Don't be sorry. And who should you get the attention from? First thing that comes to mind.
Mum,
Yes. And who's she giving it to instead of you?
sister.
Yes. And she doesn't deserve it. You do. You're a good
I'm
girl.
a good
Yeah.
girl. Oh,
And it's never going to change.
oh, everything went quiet then. Everything went really quiet.
Hmm. Is Mum still alive?
No, no.
No.
But who looked after her during her dying days?
Oh yeah, the girl who deserved it, but it's not fair because even then she didn't get it. Yeah,
Yeah, I looked after her and sister nowhere to be seen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yet she got what would really belong to you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you confronted Mum and said, "Why is she your favourite?" she would deny it.
Oh yeah, yeah. She was very manipulative. Yeah, she was.
Mm.
Yeah. In the steps. Can't remember now. My head's gone blank. But the step. I was recognised as what was it? A bully, a something bully. I can't remember. And in I think Penilla's thing is something bully. But
Passive
it all
aggressive,
said
maybe.
what, sorry?
Passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive, that was it. Passive aggressive. And that it says that stems from a need to be seen or something like that. And I sort of recognise that as sort of, yeah, a need to be seen. I know that I've been all my life needing to be seen, and I've always
Yeah,
seen it as a bad
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Don't go down there though. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a way of getting back up into the head again.
Yeah, yeah,
Feeling unseen. That's the thing for you to look at, for you to experience. Feeling unseen.
yes, feeling unseen. Yeah, feeling, yeah, yeah.
And isn't it amazing that this comes from your situation with Mum and your sister, etc., and yet it extends out to other people in your life now.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we project, don't we? We do this. Yeah.
Yes,
I think it's
yeah,
fascinating the way it happens. Absolutely.
yes, yes,
Mm.
yeah. I've had to apologise to one fella and say I'm sorry. You know, it's not you personally. it's that I'm reacting to you, and it's not about you personally.
Mm.
I've had to apologise. I've been right rotten to him.
Yeah.
So I can see it. I can see I'm projecting it. But there's something still in there. I once went for some sort of, I don't know, Reiki or something, and I let it explode like that. It was like just come from nowhere, and it was just like that. And I thought, I bet there's more down there.
Yeah. Well, we just saw some come out. So, you know,
Yeah.
and there'll probably be more, but that's it. That's okay. Yeah. Seeing what's there. So what you just saw, and you may have already known all that stuff, but what you just saw, you just expressed it at a level below your head. It was it wasn't up here. It was down here, you know, and that
Oh, it's way down.
yeah,
Way down that.
yep.
Yeah.
And it'll keep coming up until it doesn't anymore. But I'd say it's now less needed than what it was even half an hour ago, you know. Something's changed with that.
Yeah. Thanks again, Vince.
Oh, you don't thank me. Thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Mm. How are you traveling, Jetka? Why are you here?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I have questions actually.
Yeah, go.
Specific questions. Yeah, so since we talked last time, that's about a year, perhaps something more than a year, maybe. I don't know. So I did a lot of work on the fourth and fifth feather without actually calling it that way. I just
Oh.
felt extremely dragged into working with the subconscious, and I found this method which I named before, the skill of inquiries, which fit with me very well because it's a structured way of inquiry and so forth. And I've been with it for a while, and the reactivity and the suffering or whatever, it just dropped, like, I don't know, down to 3% of what it used to be. It's just amazing. It's really, it's super fun, you know. There is no notion of things that should be different than they are at all. It's just gone simply. And that's so nice. Yeah. There's still some, there can be on occasion, there can be some unconscious reaction, unfortunately, especially in connection to my child. Yeah, I can still get challenged there. Yeah, but it's seen in retrospect, and I'm working on it. So yeah, that's amazing. It's good. So my question was, when does one call the 4 and 5 fallen or done or over?
I love that question. Look, I have to say, you've asked the wrong person here. Never is my answer.
All right. Okay.
When you're on your deathbed and you're dying, and you can go, well, I've got 3 minutes left. Is it going to come up or not? You know, who knows?
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
yeah. But others,
Yeah.
like Christiana and Angelo and you know, Panilla, they have good ideas about fallen stuff. I just don't. I can't for the life of me believe anything has fallen, even if I haven't seen any evidence of it for a year, you know, because it's going to take something in the family, and in a way it'll come again, you know.
Okay. Okay.
But it doesn't matter, you know, like why is there a need to say it's fallen? If you're saying, oh, well, I want to make sure that's fallen before I move on to the next fetter, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just on to the next fetter. If there's anything left on this one, it'll show up.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I that's actually exactly what I did. I started to work on the number 6, and this time it's like conscious feather approach.
Yes,
using the
See,
inquiry,
6
the
is a
potential.
different thing. You've moved into a different area altogether. When you get on 6, you're getting to a much more subtle level than you were on 4 and 5, you know. But even you know, you'll find that no matter how far you get, you know, bits and pieces of earlier ones will come up. You know, you might not have doubt, but it might come up too. You know, it might be discover you've got some kind of ritual that you didn't realize about that's there in your life, you know, and those desires and ill will, desire and aversion, boy, they're tricky ones. They can hide. They can hide. Yeah, you just got to go, you know, why do I crave that piece of toast? Just because I can smell somebody else eating it, you know, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't worry, you know, see, they're not sequential either, you know, so you can find that, you know, you get to 6 and all of a sudden you go, well, there's not much here, you know, I've already dealt with a lot of that stuff. It just happens at another level. And all of a sudden you go, well, I recognize that. Or you can start doing the exercises, you know, do the looking and you know, do that. That's a great way to kind of get in touch, and of course the subtlety of it, you know, is there a sensation? Is there a sensation?
There is. Yeah.
Going out and coming back.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I started to do them just a couple of days ago, and this is exactly what I noticed, that there is quite a strong sensation. I would like describe it maybe as a fear coming out, like undescribed, or I mean, I can connect it to any cause, or I mean, other than doing the actual inquiry thing. So and even listening to Angelo talking about it with Kevin, it already that brought up a reaction. I thought it's amazing. It's cool. So
and that one is so tied into not just 7, but even into 8. You know, there's suddenly you start to when you see that, how you objectify something out there, see the connection, and then you bring it back in, and then all of a sudden you go, what's it connecting to? You know, and it's like it's not just that you're doing that, you're just creating the world out there, but the world is creating you, and then all of a sudden that's not there anymore, and so it's you already jumped onto the next one. You know, the I am one. Yeah, it's crazy. And Rowanna's nodding her head. She's got some things to tell you here.
So I've been following along with Panilla's Awakening curriculum, and she echoes exactly what Vince was saying, that it's not linear. It's more of a spiral. She calls it a wheel because it's more simply put in a 2D diagram. And even she said, you know, there's going to be deepening with it's a deepening process, and it's so even Theta 1, you know, it's never, how deep can you go, you know? So I think that sort of just echoing what Vince was saying, and the Theta 6 is extraordinary because it's not. It's the whole, I think the brain, I was listening to a recent Angelo video, and he was saying that it's really normal for there to be expressions of, you know, sensations that you can label as fear. And I had tons of that. And I felt that, you know, I was looking at a doorknob and it was looking at me and I was afraid of it. Like, whoa. But it's sort of like a resistance to seeing things as they really are, because of the comfort we have with putting the filters to protect the mechanism, or that it's I suppose, what do they call it, subject object constancy, something like that. So one's a little bit, you know, starting to explore that. So it's all super normal and exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, when you think about it, when you recognize the subject object creation, to let go of that is annihilation. And that's the most basic fear that we have. Absolute annihilation. What exists after that? Nothing.
Would you recommend at this point to try to inquire into the fear? Because so far it's been a bit hard. I'm not getting any answers from it, but I have been sitting with it just for a couple of days. So like would, yeah, ask the fear, what is this about, or what does it want? Or, yeah.
No, I had really, really intense, some really, and I just didn't, I just sat with it because I think when I was sort of thinking a little bit about how this, this subject object sort of comes in and we go backwards in the fetters, and how a little child, a baby, I mean, in the beginning, they swaddle, they come out, it comes out of the womb, it's swaddled, and there's a lot of hugging, but then little by little, it's sort of put down, and then nobody knows exactly when the me self other develops, but as soon as there's a sense of self, there's a little bit of contraction, even if it's tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows what it's like with a baby? We've all forgotten, or at least I have. But I think that contraction is actually sort of comforting, and so it's building on that. And then this new way of seeing, what Vince was saying, when you let go of the subject, and you can't find it. And I guess the body's already sensing that, but there's something in the systems that's saying, no, I'm not going to let go. That sense of nothingness is very disquieting. It probably goes back to a very pre-verbal, when there are sensations somehow, but there's no, unless you've got good memory, functioning pre-verbally.
No, that's not going to happen.
No, so I wouldn't. I don't think it's just to be with and forgetting. I mean, it is a real fear sensation, but it's also like a sort of like, I don't know, for you, for me, it was like a really intense sort of tingling, and it moved down. In the beginning, I think it was sort of more waist, and it sort of moved down into the legs, even gradually. It was somehow like the nervous system readjusting to see and hear with the whole body-mind complex, as it were, So seeing seems to happen, it's like there's no real necessarily need, unless there's a focusing on something, there's no sense of eyes seeing, it's just sort of seeing happening.
That can be there sometimes, it's sort
and
of
the
like
same with the hearing.
So just consider for a moment what is over the edge of Feta 10. When we talk about ignorance, we're talking about a sense of not knowing, right? And I came into this through a portal that said I can't know anything. There's nothing to know. It's all there is experience, and all of that is my interpretation as a result of my perspective. So there's nothing to know. There's just stories. But beyond Feta 10, there's a recognition that those stories are hollow. They don't mean anything, right? So what happens is that there's a setting adrift or a breaking of the tether to those stories. They're still there, but they no longer have anything to do with me. They're right. So what that ignorance is, as I see it, however you want to say it, what that ignorance is moving into experiencing a world that is no longer dependent on thoughts. That's it. there's no connection between thoughts and anything else. They're just there.
Mhm.
But sensations, you know, the body, sensations are thoughts. They're made up of thought stuff. We feel them. They're thoughts we feel. Yeah? Or equally true, thoughts are sensations. So the restlessness of Theta 9 might be seen as the act of letting go of, you know, the process, the actual letting go, not the having let go of, but the letting go of, the process of letting go of the connection to thought.
Mhm.
So if we keep coming back down to 8, there's this sensation of I am. Just that body thought, the body thinking, not the head thinking, the body thought, which is the connection to a very faint connection to I am. It's like we're sliding, or when coming at it from this direction, where we're sliding back up a slippery slope, back into something that's more and more solid, more and more tangible. But it's just, it's all a progression of the same thing. When we get right down to 4 and 5, it's really substantial. The fear, any fear that's there, or any sensation, but fear is like a window, like a revealing of the body memory stuff. It's just an expression of something that's hanging on. That all sounds pretty stupid to me now when I say it, but it's just that feeling of they're not separate. There's no separateness in any of the fetters. It's all a progression, so to speak. And what somebody pointed out to me, that a lot of people, like Adyashanti, for example, they're obviously gone past Theta 10, and yet then they get very sick. You know, it happens because there's a lot of body stuff still there, and a lot of other people who've gone past Theta 10 have then developed various physical ailments as well. I'm only presuming, and I have no idea to know whether it's right or not, but I'm just presuming that it is because the body still has a memory. The body still is still hanging on to some stuff.
There's, I don't know if people have heard of Yuji Krishnamurti, not the
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And he had an awakening that he called it the catastrophe. Because it was so intense and it was such an intense body experience. I can't remember exactly because it was a while ago since I sort of listened to it or read his account. So it was so intense on the whole nervous system. I mean, that's what I say, nervous system, because and so the way of doing it gradually and gently seems preferable to having a catastrophe and I guess it's sort of, you can put lots of other equivalents like Kundalini already are waking up and blowing itself and getting lost in the body because it happened too fast. There's also, and sometimes blowing, the psychology. So I think in a way, the Theta model is a gentle process to go. If the whole fetters arrive so quickly, and you mentioned a slippery slope, I was thinking it's like going down a slide into this whole thing of identification, and then you've got to climb up that slippery slope, and people are throwing all sorts of, or not, but you've left behind a trail of very, very slippery stuff to little by little have to move up it again. Anyway, that's just, I sometimes come up with these little.
Yeah. I read Yuji Krishnamurti way back when I was a seeker, and I don't have a lot of memory of what I read, but I do remember him as a super skeptic about a lot of this stuff. And I agree with him. We make it into something that is just, we want to make it more tangible, and we make it into something that's special, and when in fact it's quite the opposite in a way.
Yeah, some of his old videos, I mean, all the videos that are available, and there's people who are saying, and they're talking about all their their trauma and their, I suppose, stories. And he's saying, what are you talking about? There's nothing there. Nothing there. And he's a character. His character. It's pity there's not more material on him.
I want to ask about the fear barrier. It relates to which fetter?
I think you can't separate it from any, because it's like anything new. We're comfortable with we're comfortable with where we are, even if it's like it's a repetition compulsion to stay, because this is what's sort of known. The body's sort of got all its defenses in order to survive. It's a survive, and then when those are somehow started to look into, there can be a fear response, I would say, in any, or it could be interpreted. But then also they say physiologically, chemically, fear is very similar to excitement. It's just how it's interpreted. So yeah, it's but definitely the second fetter when you're looking at the emotions, I would say. I don't know, Vince, what would you?
Oh, I don't know. Pernilla talks about doubt as both intellectual doubt and emotional doubt. So one is a bodily response, the emotional doubt, and that can be resting on fear for sure. Yeah. we make too much, you know, we make a lot out of fear, you know, when we also make it into a thing, when in fact it's not a thing as much as it is an expression of a belief, really. And so, of course, not all fear is the same. So if we ban the word, if we say we will not use the word fear, and we have to describe what it is that we're experiencing in other ways, it's a good way to get a lot closer to what's actually happening. And so what we might describe as fear is a contraction somewhere, a sense of being protecting, pulling in. It has stress components. So if we were to measure things, we would find that we have stress hormones in the body when we're experiencing it. We would also find that the different part of the brain lights up, you know, part the back here lights up. So all sorts of things, and none of those things in of themselves, they don't matter. You know, that what they're saying is they're protecting us. They're saying, we're going to look after you. We're going to stop you from getting into a really bad place. Now, that bad place doesn't have to actually exist, but somewhere we imagine it's a bad place, or it was a very bad place when we first learned of it.
I saw a video, I thought, which made me think the other day, somebody had on Facebook, a little one of those short ones, and they were on a bridge and it was wood. And I don't know if the bridge was also moved. No, it couldn't have been. It was a solid bridge. But then going across a river or a ravine or something, it was glass. And the little toddler, was a very little toddler, got to the edge of where the wood became glass, and he wouldn't go further. He wouldn't go further. He just was but he was curious, but he was like touching, and then he turned back. But obviously one parent was in front of him because they were videoing. But then if you think that if the child was forcibly, you know, made to go into a place where it's curiosity and it doesn't know, but at the same time it's not feeling afraid, but if it was forced beyond that natural safety boundary that it was exploring, then there could have been a trauma that would arise of a fear response, because it was maybe, I mean, I'm making a story out of a fantasy, but
I got you.
I just thought, oh, that's really interesting how this little child who probably, I mean, he could walk, but
They'd already learned that, yes. So if you went back to a child who's just learning to crawl, they would probably crawl out onto that without even stopping, would have no fear whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow between
not sure.
Not true.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, I've heard about this research that it is there are two fears that we are born with. Every newborn fears height and loud noises.
Loud noises, I can understand a startle effect.
And the height is
a newborn baby would be afraid of the height.
evolutional. Height is evolutional because we were on trees.
Yeah. Okay.
So a child had a monkey child has to cling to mother.
Not sure I would agree on that, because I have a small child, and up until a certain time, I really had to prevent him from jumping down like cliffs, or, you know, he would go straight down a cliff or straight down a high wall and try to jump. He really would jump. It's amazing. But recently we have exactly this experience. We went to a spa which had a 2 floors, and in an upper floor there was a big window you could walk on. And it was exactly what you were describing, Rowena, that he would walk to the edge and he would start to like examine it curiously, but he wouldn't go on. But now he has passed the phase when I have to be afraid around like rocks and walls, because now he wouldn't try to jump anymore. Now so I think for my child, I have seen this actually to develop. It was not there from the beginning, because really he would without hesitation jump down a wall. 4 meters wall, he would just try to get over and jump. I was like, you know, holding on to him. It was me holding on to him, not he holding on to me.
It's amazing the way
Yeah.
the brain works with that stuff. I took my grandson, who's actually visiting us now, but he's now a teenager, but when he was much younger, we took him for his birthday to a virtual reality place. And while we were there, I donned the goggles and we went in a lift up in this virtual reality, and then we walked out onto a plank that was several stories high on this plank. And I knew that I had virtual reality goggles on. I knew that this floor was beneath me, but here was this picture of a plank, and I could not bring myself to walk out on it, even though I knew that it was a solid floor. It was just like my brain took over, and I was feeling panic at the idea of walking out, 15 floors up on a plank, even though I knew it was just an illusion. And yet my brain determined what I couldn't do. It would not let me do it.
When was this in terms of your spiritual pathless path?
Oh, this wasn't that long ago. This was only about 3
Really?
years ago. Yeah. So it's a great example of how the brain, the evolution of the brain is so powerful, amazing. Yeah. You think, oh yes, I know that. I won't have fear, but I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just yesterday. I was getting my haircut done. It was in a shopping mall, in a mall, and there was this huge mirror I was sitting in front of, which was like 1.5 meters in front of me, and I was observing the people in the mirror, and I was thinking it's really amazing that even that I couldn't get myself to see it as a 2D picture, even though it obviously was. I was just thinking about this feather 6, among others. And I was just trying to see, like, I had this feeling that if I wanted to meet the people that were walking in the mirror, all I have to do is walk into the mirror, but knowing that it's a mirror. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's So part of what I think we experience on this journey isn't that these illusions stop happening, but rather we simply recognize that they are an illusion. I mean, you're going to go to a magic show and you're going to see the magician saw a woman in half, and you there's no way you can not see what they're presenting to you. You're going to see that, even though you know it's not true. That's what you're going to see. You will still feel like you under certain circumstances, even though you know it's not true. It's just a feeling.
There's another thing that's interesting I read recently, and there's a condition as to show how our brains all work so differently, that it's a new condition that they've labeled called aphantasia, and people who have absolutely no recall of visual image memory. Like there was a woman and she said that her mother died and then she couldn't remember at all. She had no, and so some people have, I mean, and I don't have that, but I would say, maybe 50% visual image. I don't have a very good visual image capacity. And other people have very strong visual image capacity. So how everything is going to affect us is each person on going through all these is going to be really different. And some people, yeah, they found a lot of people, they call it seeing in the mind's eye. That's what they, in the article, somebody related their experience, and all of a sudden neuroscientists started looking into it. And of course, with that, most of them, there were sort of had very, very almost, no capacity for memory, recall in a visually. They weren't talking about the other senses, but it didn't hinder them in any way in their, or at least some people, in their ordinary life, they just, I suppose maybe they live more in the moment, maybe, I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah, infinite variation. I have an article on, on one of the newsletters that I get, and I've opened the tab to read the article, but I haven't. But the article's entitled, "What is it like for these people who can remember every face they've ever seen in their whole life?" And I go, well, wow, I wonder what it would be like. And I haven't read the article yet, so I don't know about it. But some people can do that, and other people can't remember somebody they saw yesterday. That's me. I can't. Yeah.
And also, just because you can remember the faces doesn't mean to say you can recall them in your mind's eye.
Yes,
so
yes.
There's two different systems working.
Yeah. Well, when I've looked at my, at a memory of, so I can recognize a face, but I couldn't replicate it. I couldn't, even if I was a good artist, I couldn't draw it because I don't know. It's not the details that I remember, right? The recognition of it is something else altogether.
Yeah.
Like we watched a movie last night on the streaming thing on television, and we went, but both my wife and I went, yeah, we've seen this movie before, and there were scenes that we knew what the outcome would be, but we couldn't remember the whole movie. We couldn't remember how it ended up, but we knew that we'd seen it before. I find that rather interesting. That's probably what it'll be like when I've got dementia. Who knows? Yeah, how the brain works is just such a wonderful mystery, isn't it? Brilliant. Yeah.
I have a question about when people say that awakening is not all the time, what they are referring to, like what's the difference?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So what is awakening? That's where we need to start with that kind of thing, and it's nothing. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as awakening or enlightenment or any of that kind of stuff. That's a description of something. And if we are more specific than the word awakening, which is a very general kind of idea, if we say, have we broken the first fetter, right? Or with what the Buddhists would call stream entry, it is the recognition that there isn't a self independently existing and running the show. That's the first fetter. That's what Liberation Unleashed is all about, breaking that first fetter, recognizing that the idea that there is a self is just an idea. It's a conceptualization. That's what some people would call awakening, but it's just a beginning thing. It's probably the it's wrong to say the easiest one, but it is the easiest one, but it's the hardest one too. It's the first one that we do. So once we recognize that there is no self running the show, that doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means. It doesn't mean that there will be no feeling that there is a self or a sense of self. They will still exist, right? So no matter how much you know that magician hasn't actually sawn a woman in half, it still looks like he has. No matter how much you know that shimmer on the road down there is not water, it still looks like water. You know, if you're in the desert, no matter how much you recognize that mirage is not an actual oasis, it still looks like one. So that sense of self will still be there, but you know it's an illusion. When you believed it was actual, it was a delusion. And when you're not deluded anymore, you still live with illusion. So that's part of what being awake is. And it's not some permanent state of bliss, but without that delusion, with that illusion that there is no self running the show, there are a whole lot of ramifications that come off that, right? So if there's no self that can make decisions, take responsibility for decisions, control the outcome of things, when that's seen through, we can be a lot more relaxed about the way things happen. We don't beat ourselves up over something not happening the way we thought it should happen, because we recognize that the idea that it should happen in a certain way is just a fantasy. It's just a story. You know, we used to believe that story and we used to beat ourselves up when it didn't work out the way we said it should work out. Now we just think it's a bit funny when it doesn't work out the way we thought it should work out, because what's funny is that we've got a story about how it should work out. That's all. Chitka knows what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I was just thinking with Vince's what Vince was saying about that 3D whatever, you know, thing on the plank.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't people have all sorts of ideas about awakening and these all these expectations and beliefs, and that everything's an illusion. And so, but if you're in a plane and you're awake, you're still, unless you're completely, I don't know, that you're not going to jump out of the plane without at least having a parachute if you're a skydiver or something. You know, there's innate intelligence or something that there's not, everything's still happening. It's just that there's not the hand. I think of it as like the handbrake, driving with the handbrake on with a self. You don't need that, and then you take the handbrake off, and then somehow there's flow. But the natural way of, unless if you're a real daredevil person and you're awake, you're still going to be a daredevil person. If your mechanism is more cautious, it probably will still be cautious because it's working to the way it's wired, you know, but without the handbrake on of the self.
I have no desire to go on a bungee jump. You know, that still scared the shit out of me, for sure.
Yeah, it's too much for the organism itself wiring to, it's a natural somehow intelligence or knowing of what is.
So what it
I'd like
means
to make,
to,
sorry, go ahead.
what it means for awakening to not be all the time, like I don't understand. Is it permanent or consistent, or is it sometimes yes and sometimes no? And what's the difference? Is it like sometimes an awakened person is identified? Is that what it refers to?
Okay, good question. My answer is that as you've heard us talking about the fetters and progressing through the fetters, what we're talking about is remnants of identification that we discover are still there after we've broken the first fetter. So after we recognize that there's no self to identify with, we might say that we no longer have identification, but we'd be fooling ourselves because there will still be remnants of identification there that are hidden, and they'll come up, they'll make themselves known when certain triggers will appear. So certain circumstances in our life might trigger us into identification, and that stuff, that identification, it's a bit tricky how to put this, that it's not that, it's the moment they come up, they will be recognized as identification has happened, but it is more just habit than actual identification. So the moment it is seen, it will be recognized as just a bit of old habit that's come back, a bit of something that was not seen through before. And they, well, in my experience, they still pop up for sure. They still pop up, and we can get, you know, you've only got to have somebody that comes up and wants to punch you in the face to suddenly feel like you've got to protect something, you know, or if they abuse you, you know, then you can get into a defensive mode very quickly. And it's because those kind of circumstances don't happen very often. And once they've happened, that defensive attitude that we might call identification, that gets seen through, and it's likely that next time that happens, that it won't pop up like that because it's been seen through. But it might take a few times before it's seen through enough not to come back. So to say that somebody who recognizes that self is just a conceptual thing, never identifies again, is not something that's true in my experience. Identification will keep coming up until it doesn't. And what we talk about when we get up into the 6th, 7th, 8th theta, is it's still identification. Only this time we're getting to the point where it's a very small remnant of it. It's a physical remnant. It's just almost just the slightest, most subtle sense of a self still existing. You know, so it's a long way from the early stuff. You know, it's no longer a gross delusion of the existence of a self. It's just a feeling in the body that there's still somebody there, very subtle. So yeah, it's definitely, this is important stuff, because we as a seeker, we read all this stuff and we listen to all these people, and we just get taken off into fantasy land about what it will be like when we're awake. And this is, you know, what I want to say to you is, wow, it's a lot more ordinary than you think. You know, your personality, whatever that is, will still be there. And it's not because you identify as that, it's because you've conditioned, you're conditioned to be that way. It's what you've learned, or you've got a whole lifetime of conditioning to be the way you are. So if you're the way you are, you will always be the way you are. You will just recognize that it's not because there's somebody in there running the show that makes you like that. You know, of course, we all change as well. We all change in subtle ways. But yeah, I don't know. What do you
The
reckon?
other thing is also the trap of making something that is always changing in flux into a thing. And so when you talk about awakening and why you're either there or you're not, there is no there. It's process. It's like there isn't. It's not a thing. It's not an end goal. I'm the same with it, like any of those terms like enlightenment or full realization or whatever. There's a sort of pointer somewhere to something, but it's not a thing. It's and I think that is quite an important just sort of thing to remember, because it when it's a thing, it creates expectations that something's going to happen and it's going to be different, and or I'm going to get rid of something, and so that's quite a helpful thing to remember.
Without the idea that there is a controller in there, all those ramifications that spin off from that, as they drop away, we learn, and that's a development as well, to see the world differently. We start to look at what is actual rather than look at what we think is actual. You know, and most people, most people, my grandson and I, we watched a science fiction movie today, and it was about this this bloke developed a game, and it was a futuristic thing, and he developed this game where people visited the oasis. They called it the oasis, and in the oasis people could be what they like. They had an avatar, and they could do anything, you know. They could fly, they could just be whatever they wanted to be in this oasis. And when we finished that game, finished that movie, I said to my grandson, I said, you know, this world that we call the real world, it's not a lot different to the oasis. You know, that this world that most people think is the real world is a fantasy world that they live in. It's one that they've made up, and that the way they think they know how it works isn't the way it actually works at all. Right? That there is actually another world that's that. So what people call the real world, I call the unreal world, because it's not very real at all, because people think all sorts of things are actual when all they are is concepts. They're conceptual. So it's that falling away, or rather the recognizing that the concepts are no longer, well, that they are actually concepts. It's a recognition that they are conceptual. That means that we can see things, we can see past our ideas of what things are, of what people are, of what things are, and we see things. It's wrong to say that we see things more the way they actually are, because we're still applying our ideas, but much less so. I don't know. How would you describe it, Anna? She shrugs her shoulders. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
That sense of me is that, you know, like I did see it through, but that's still like very strongly here. And even, you know, like I can recognize thoughts, I can like detach from thoughts and all this, you know, like I can just, you know, like see story is a story. That sense of me is still here, and it's very strong here. Like I had few times when that kind of, you know, like talking is happening and no one is doing there, and there is, you know, like you see reflection and there is no sense of me is there, but it's it's very subtle and it's just coming and going. But so I can't really.
Yeah, it is tricky. It is subtle, you know. See, if I had to, how can I put it? If I said it was me that said all that stuff a second ago, I wouldn't dispute that that was right or wrong. But when I was saying it, like what I'm saying now, I'm not thinking about it. I mean, these are just words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm not planning them. I'm not reading a script. They're just words when I'm opening my mouth and out come these words. So that my best description of what's happening right now is not that I'm talking. That's just an overlay. That's a story that's invented to describe what's happening. But a much more accurate way to say it is that talking is happening, and that the sound that's coming out of this head, I mean, I partly feel that sound. I feel the vibrations in my forehead and in my temples as I talk. And I hear a sound that is different to the sound of my voice if I hear it back on a tape recorder, but it's a sound, and that's just happening. To say that I'm doing it is just a story that I put on top of it. And it's a useful story if I'm communicating something to you about somebody talking, but it's not the actual experience. The actual experience is just sounds that can be interpreted as words that can be interpreted to have meaning. But none of that, I don't think about any of that. That just happens.
What I found very interesting when you really, like just stand, like, observing what is happening, like how body is moving, how this all here is coming out, like you have no idea what next thing is going to be. It's just like, it's so amazing, like head is moving and you had no idea it's going to do that. Attention goes somewhere. Or like you take a breeze, like anything, if you just really just watch how everything happens, you have no idea what next thing. It's like you're stepping into unknown all the time. And like once that is noticed, it's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. That's it. Like it doesn't exist before you actually notice it's gone. It's amazing when you like, you just do that replay.
Yep. And if you were to analyze it, and you think, wow, what does it take for that to happen? There's this head movement and this mouth movement and this air movement and this it's just phenomenal. The complexity of it is just indescribable. What goes on for these words to just happen? It's just unbelievable. Yeah, there's no way we can say anything happens on purpose. It just happens. It's a mystery. A wonderful.
And that thought, like it's that thought, like me is doing that. It's just like so automatic there. And that is just so quick before you actually realize that is there, that is already there. It's like anything happens, that thought, me is doing this. That's just like attached there on top of everything.
Right. And a really big one, and I think this is probably hits home for you, Remez, and it's just my idea, it may or may not, but a really big one is that because I don't control what I say, because these words just happen and these circumstances, I have no how can I put it? It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. It doesn't matter how these words are taken by anybody else. I don't need to apologize. I don't need to feel self-conscious. All of that stuff came before when I believed there was a self doing that thing. Now, because there's no self, how can I possibly feel self-conscious? Why would I worry about what comes out of my mouth? Why would I worry about what I look like? Yeah, none of that matters. That's all just a joke to think that any of that might actually matter. And so there is this is another story I can put on it. There is authenticity. There is spontaneity. It's fine, you know, like that's the way things are.
For me, it seems that there is an additional part to, for example, speaking. Sometimes there would be like a part of my mind is planning what I'm gonna say, and a part is executing the speaking, and it seemed like it's so exhausting. And it reflects back about what I'm saying, and
And how much energy, how exhausting is that going on? That must
it is
make,
very exhausting.
exactly, yeah, yeah. It's amazing stuff.
And
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, yeah,
this sense of self, it feels like it's a sensation that is consistent, but it's not the same. It morphs and it changes, it moves, and it's, I can see it as an object, but it's like it doesn't make any sense. It's very disorienting, like how the sense of subject I can see as an object at the same time, like, and
yeah,
how is that possible? And sometimes it seems like this sense of self is the same as any sensation, is the same as a sound. There is no distinction. It's just something appears. There's
yes,
no
yes, yeah. Now you're
uh,
getting it. That's it. Yeah, that's
but why there is identification? It doesn't. Why this sensation is so important? Like, why?
yeah. You asking that why? It's not. It's
Eh,
not important at all. Nothing's important.
mm,
Nothing has any meaning unless you make it up. You apply meaning. Yeah, that's one of those things that we think actually exists. Meaning. Something is meaningful, we say. Well, nothing's meaningful. There is no meaning unless we make it.
I'm playing with this inquire question. What is not an object? I don't know, somehow this question makes some sense, like where I'm looking from. It's stopped the mind somehow, and
Yes. Yeah, they're and I suppose how I put that. They're sucking questions. Okay. They get you, they suck you in, those questions. But they're not valid questions. Or rather there is no answer to them. Okay, so if you were able to look, you would see that it's not coming from anywhere. There is no place. Just like there's no time, there is also no place. And we can say logically, oh, but we must be here. Here is a place. Well, here is not a place, because what is actually happening is a process. There are no objects and there are no subjects. There is only a verb. Nouns are always conceptual, but we also have abstract nouns and we have concrete nouns, but even concrete nouns are conceptual from the perspective of the organism. And that's an important one. So we mustn't get sucked into thinking that the absolute is something that we can comprehend. We can't. It's a mystery, the absolute. But the relative, which is us, that's something we can experience. But then we can't do more than just experience it. There is only experiencing. So when you say, where are you looking from? There is no from. There is only looking. Now, there's no point in me telling you that. That's something you have to experience. And if you were to get really involved in looking at something and looking at it in the beginning, you will be looking at an object and there'll be somebody looking at the object. And then as you look more and more closely and more detail, you start to appreciate that what is being seen is too subtle for words to describe accurately. And when you chase that down even more, you get to the point where the seeing is the seeing. You've got to do this. You've got to do it. You've got to put an object in front of you and do it. And it can take quite a bit. Some people have really a lot of difficulty getting this, and others can get it easily, but it's a hard one. So when you're seeing and what you're seeing is even more detailed and more subtle than being able to say that I am seeing color and I am seeing texture and I'm seeing shape. If those labels that I just mentioned, color, texture and shape, if those, when you're seeing that, what you're seeing can't be described in those terms, you can't actually describe it because it's too detailed and it's too complex for words to describe. At that point, if you ask yourself, who is seeing or what is being seen, and you watch yourself, the moment you ask those questions, you will recognize that seeing stops. You have to get away from seeing, which is the experience, the direct experience. You have to go back into your mind to consider who is seeing or what is being seen. And with that will come the realization that the who is seeing and what is being seen can only exist as concepts. That the only actual thing in your experience is the actual act of seeing. So there is only seeing. Or you can use sound and it can be only listening. But the moment you ask yourself who is listening or what is being listened to, what is being heard, you stop the hearing stops. Those things can only exist conceptually. So the only actuality in your experiencing are verbs, no nouns at all, just verbs, just a process. And that process can't be bottled. That process exists only as movement. The moment you try and snapshot something and stop the movement, it disappears. So now we're getting down to a real nitty-gritty of what is actual.
It's like river, like it's never static, it's always dynamic, it's always movement.
Like what is?
Or river, like water movement.
Yes, yeah. Oh, river.
Yeah, you can't just box it. It's always moving. It's never static. It's never standing.
Yes.
And same as weather pattern, like it's just like say for example, wind. You just can't take it. Oh, this is wind. It's like it's movement.
Yes.
The same like all like body. Like all themselves and everything just like happen, like it's changing all the time. It's like dynamic.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. If you tried to bottle a bit of the river, you've only got water in the bottle. You haven't got a river. Yeah. If you do it with the wind, you've only got air in the bottle. You haven't got wind. It's that movement that makes it what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything exists as movement. It's the only way anything can exist is with movement.
It's like, if you take a blood sample, you separate it from like a whole organism body, that's it, them cells are not growing anymore. That is just like it's dying there. It's not, there's
Yes.
different processes happening, like rotten processes, but that's not the same movement as it was in the body part. It's very something I remembered last night, like when that one of them shakes, like after like fear response, like shake happened, like there was a recognition how we are as humans are connected to each other and everything. It's like a Christmas lights, like them bulbs, and like electricity just goes through, and like all bulbs are lighting up. But and like as a kid, like babies, children, they're born, they sense into everything, and they feel like mommies, daddies, like all humans around, just like temperature, everything, just like sensations, they sense in everything. And like naturally, it should be like that. Every human is connected to everything. But for some reason, because we are disconnected, so that child like feels mommy, daddy, and everything around, and like whatever happens. But mommy and daddy are not as tuned because they've been disconnected. So whenever there is something emotional happens to a child, technically it should spread all around to other humans. So everything takes a wee bit, and that impact on the baby's body, like on child's body, is not as strong. But because that disconnection happened, and growing ups are not taking that part, what that technically should be there, naturally should be there. It's like, I was thinking like very good analogy is volcano or earthquake or anything, like them tsunamis. It's not one isolated, like, it just happens, and everyone takes that impact, like all around takes an impact, and like more it spreads, it's like loses its strengths. So technically, like emotional things, like should happen between humans the same way, like a chain reaction. I'm feeling something and everyone takes a part, and that's just easy, it's gone. But because we are disconnected, it's all happens here. And that's like, it's like if you were a 40-watt bulb and 1,000 watt is coming in, like it's blowing your fuses. It's just like too much of an impact on one. But if we were all connected as it's naturally should be, I'm taking as much as I can and just giving the rest. And everyone just takes, and it's gone. And it's like, evens out. Yeah, that's, I got this recognition somehow. It's like in that film, Avatar, like when they had that hair and they were like connecting to everything, and they had that, like no harming anything, because, like you can't harm anything because you feel everything as yourself. It's just, like you can't do that actually, because if you harm yourself, you harm yourself harming something else. And, like you're really like tuning into everything and you just feel everything as yourself. Yeah, that's a natural way we all like should be. But for some reason, as humans, we get like that chain reaction of disconnection and separation.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that one. I think we are all connected actually, but it's like not recognizing that we're connected seems to disconnect us, but I don't think it actually does disconnect us. It just appears to be a disconnection. I think we all do. I mean, and if we go the other way, it's kind of easy to feel the connection sometimes, you know, especially in these groups. It's a lot easier to feel the connection that does exist. And even though we might imagine that it's an imaginary connection, it's a real feeling. And and yeah, it's a tricky one, that one. Yeah.
I think like more you open up, like, you know, to feel into your own body, you open your channels like to feel into everything.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And the self-consciousness that happens when people still believe in a self, and so therefore self-consciousness, that puts barriers up to the connection. You know, as soon as we are no longer defensive, and I believe that the self is all about defense. As soon as we are no longer defensive, we feel the connection a lot stronger. Yeah.
I think that defensiveness is also because at some stage there was like a very strong emotional impact, like energetic impact. And that, you know, like when that's got like, you know, like the, I don't know, like a shrink in a ball. And it just, you know, that's there, like contraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, like more you start to expand, more you open up, and there is like, because that defensiveness is that contraction, you know, like you
Yes,
need to
it is.
protect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like pulling that hair back out of whatever and keeping it. Yeah. But
So we
the
kind of
thing is,
like
we don't want
freeze in
this
that
to be a.
contraction.
Sorry.
I think we are like frozen in contracted state.
Yes. Yeah. And what we don't want to just have a philosophical discussion about this. We want to actually relate it back to ourselves, to our own experience, so that we can be more relaxed and we can open up and we can experience what is actual.
I think that's why more you open up, like more that soul starts to coming up, you know, like it's like if you've been like a frozen bowl, you know, like a frozen snowball contracted, now it's like, you know, like opening and it's melting, softening, and it's all start to like moving and moving and moving. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
there's definitely
springtime, you know. Yeah. Like I remember like I was sitting like 4 days, I was sitting with this like whatever that was coming up. And I just like got this like it really feels like you're a pipe and water, like normally water just goes through it, you know, like that life flow just goes through it, but it's being blocked with different kind of derbis and it's froze. So now with that awakening process, it starts softening and that water starts to move slowly through you and just, you know, like washing out all that rubbish being frozen there. Yeah. I'm very like, you know, like into, so, you know, I can sense something, but it's very hard to describe into words what is happening.
Yes. Yeah, words just don't do it a lot of the time, do they? Yeah.
Reflecting back on most of the connection I had in my life, now I can see that it was mostly trauma bonding.
Yeah.
And it felt off. It felt. I feel like the question that's coming for me now is what I'm trying to protect myself from, and what I'm trying to protect.
We can't just jump though. I mean, you can say, what am I trying to protect is an illusion, that self. What am I trying to protect from is some kind of undefined memory, which is also an illusion. But to jump to that straight off, it doesn't work. It doesn't help. So if we say, oh, I recognize that there's no self, therefore there's nothing to protect from, that's just another escape. That's just what we call bypassing. You know? Because although what we're trying to protect from is just something, some memory, it's been hardwired in the body. So what we're trying to protect from is real, even though it's not legitimate. How could I, that might be one way to put it. So it doesn't, we have to recognize first that what we are trying to protect from isn't necessary in order to stop the process of protecting from happening. And how we recognize that it isn't necessary is to recognize that when we developed it, when we developed the need to protect, we were suffering from the delusion that it was necessary. But now, right now, if we say, look around you, is there anything in your immediate vicinity that you need to protect yourself from? Is there any actual threat there now? And almost always you're going to say, no, there's nothing I need to protect from now. There is no threat right this instant anywhere around me. And by recognizing that, you can take the juice out of the fear and get closer to the origin of the fear. So that origin, when it first was experienced, right just the moment before it got hardwired into the body, it was experienced as a genuine and real threat. But the difference between then and now is not in time, it's in the fact that you now recognize that it wasn't actually a genuine threat, even though it was experienced as a genuine threat when it happened. You know, it's like you can take your current adult perspective back to the innocent, naive perspective that first experienced it as a genuine threat. And you can say to that innocent, naive perceiver of the threat that it's no longer necessary for you to feel the fear. It doesn't actually exist as a real threat. even though you saw it was when you first experienced it, now we know it's not. And the really interesting thing about this is that even though that might have happened all those years ago, what you experience now is the collapse of time. There is no time difference between then and now. Then is now. And so now you can take away the reason for the fear.
That's actually what happened yesterday, Vince. That's exactly what you're saying, because that fear came up that Thursday, and Thursday night I was waking up and there was like a lot of fear, just fear, and I was like really fearing. I know, like that's like fear was pushing away. I couldn't, like I did stay in the body, but it's just, like that fear felt very real. So I start really to soothe that inner child, that scared part. And, like it wasn't enough, like look around, you're safe and all this. It wasn't enough. It took me like at least couple hours, like really just sitting like with a baby. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm okay. I'm here, I'm with you, I'm holding you, You're okay, darling, you're okay. And it was like on and on and on until that actually eventually settled. Yeah, and then once I created that safe space, all that stuff started to come up, what I was sharing with you earlier. Once there was like that safety, but before that safety was, it wasn't here.
Yes.
All that stuff, yeah, it couldn't just show up itself. So that was like really necessary. And it took me like really, and I must remember I asked, like, what are you afraid, is going to happen? And what she came up with, it's like someone is grabbing her by hand and taking her like very, 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 very deep, 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 deep in a very narrow, dark, dark place. And they actually forgot her there. Completely forgot. So I took her up on the light, and she's like, and I could see like she really wants to feel, she wants to touch, she wants to feel, like temperature, touch, and just smell, see, just feel, just feel, just feel. Yeah, that was coming up. And
Right,
that was yesterday. And then, yeah, like today, all this, wow, Jeannie.
yeah. Okay, well, that's great. You brought something to me that I was missing, and that was the time. See, time is not the right way again to put it, but that it took a sinking into there was a depth to giving that security, to allowing to the feeling safe thing. It wasn't
Yes.
just an instant thing. It wasn't a mental thing. It was a
No.
real feeling that was
Yeah.
required. Yeah. And then
Yes.
it can happen. Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Once that
good,
the inner
yeah.
child felt sense, and like you holding it, you're protecting it, you can
Yeah,
hold it. Yeah, yeah. Then it's like, wow,
yeah.
that's what it is.
And so a baby just doesn't stop crying. It kind of winds down into
Yeah,
stopping. Yeah. And
yeah,
then it winds back up into feeling good, feeling safe.
yeah,
Then
like,
wanting to reach out to expand again, to stop the contraction, to touch and
yeah.
get in. Yeah, yeah. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
like, like if child is upset there and you go there, oh, just look around, nothing is happening. It doesn't work. You really need, like to take, like, you're okay, I'm here,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I understand. Yes, you feel in heart, like you are scared, darling, you are scared, like, and all this. And that's exactly what I've been doing with myself. Just,
yeah.
like, just really just soothing and soothing and soothing. Yeah.
Good stuff.
And
Yeah,
once
for
it's like,
sure.
it's
Yeah,
settled, really settled.
yeah. Thank you. That's good. Yeah.
That's again how brain is working.
Yes. Yeah. And how it can change in the way it works.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Mm.
That has been such a good meeting today.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was looking during the meeting. Why do I need breaks for a smoke? And why do I feel the need to close my eyes? And in the last 15 minutes, maybe what will happen if I won't? Well, I was looking at smoking through this weekend. It's many situations when I am hungry, when I'm tired, when I'm nervous, when I'm bored. And one thing in common is I have difficulty with keeping my attention on something. And it's the same with closing my eyes. Then I can focus better on what is said. And when I have my eyes open, it was like I was hearing what you are saying, but I didn't have the strength to relate this to my experience. Like it was the mind work, but it's too much. I just can't.
Yeah. So would you say that it was that it was to do with the effort that being tired, the tiredness, that you needed a break because the concentration for the attention was actually quite exhausting, and that you were giving yourself a break in that way? Because it does. I noticed, you know, when I'm sitting on my lounge chair and I start to nod off, I start to kind of go to sleep. And if I get up and start doing something, I can be wide awake again. But if I stay there, I just want to go to sleep. I get very tired. And if I shut my eyes to listen to something, I can listen quite attentively for a really short time. I don't know, 30 seconds or a minute or whatever. And then next thing I'm not there anymore. I'm not listening. I just, there's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort to stay in touch with what I'm listening to under certain circumstances. You know, so other times it takes no effort at all. So yeah, I don't know about that. But yeah, but I can imagine, yeah, you do need a break because it's tiring. Yeah.
It's listening just happens, but to relate this experience to myself, it was like, I can't do it with your stories. To relate with stories to my experience.
Mm.
It was just words.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they're not something that you how can I put it, congruent with, then there's even a lot more effort involved. You know,
I have no idea if it was congruent or not,
yeah,
because
well, presumably not.
I
If
couldn't
you,
check.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? To know, to make things relevant all the time is a bit of a trick.
I also wonder because it comes in one of the fetters somewhere in this process about relating everything we see, we sense to ourselves. It is an effort.
Hmm. I think that's pretty much every fetter that we're relating to ourselves, yeah, or to what we see of ourselves, what we know of ourselves, what's left of ourselves. Yeah, a hard one. Yeah. But everybody is unique. That's the amazing thing is, yeah, we're all people. We're all the same, but we're all different. There's no there's nothing the same about us. Yeah. But our experience, of course, is always so different. And especially given that we all come from slightly different cultures and we all have different cultural conditioning, that makes it even harder to be, you know, but yet we're all human, you know, so yeah, it's a good trick, isn't it? Mm. Yeah.
About that defense, what I have noticed, most of like, you know, majority, like lately, what I have started to notice, like there's defense of being like hurt, being rejected, being pushed away, like feeling hurt. Then, you know, like behind that, there was that defense, a fear of aggression of other people, you know, like
Mhm.
a fear to annoy people, fear of their aggression. And that's what I thought, you know, like is behind that. But there is like even deeper behind that. What I realized yesterday, there is a fear of go away, we don't want you, and then you're just there on your own, and that's it. There is no one even you can't express anything because there is no one is there. And that fear is even behind, you know, like that aggression of other people. So yeah, it's just like so interesting. Like you discover one like layer and then something more and then something more and just goes deeper. And like, yeah, like I'd never realized, like, because I always like was, I'm okay on my own, you know, like I never could get in touch with that aloneness and abandonment, you know, just being on just you and just no one else you can connect to, like no one actually hears you, no one sees you, no one feels you, like isolation, like complete isolation. Yeah, that's, I got in touch with that yesterday.
Mm.
So there's like layers and layers and layers.
Yeah, well, that can be pretty deep, that one. We are, and I'm not meaning to be philosophical about it, but we are herd animals. We do, you know, rely on each other for survival.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
at various levels. Yeah.
Mhm. It's like, you know, from childhood, like when you're a child, like you really need this connection for basic survival because you can't, as a kid, you can't survive on your own. And
Mm.
if that connection is not there, that's like life threatening.
Mm.
But that's been buried so deeply.
Yeah, there's even some psychological studies that decided that babies smile as a way of seducing their parents into having that connection, you know, and so on and
Mhm.
so on. Yeah, but yeah,
it was interesting today. It also, and I am definitely a passive-aggressive type. And when Helen said that it's connected with a need of attention, yeah, and James recently asked me if this need to express is about needing attention, and I was like, nah, I got it covered. When I want attention, I will get it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe there's something
Yeah.
there that I don't want to see.
Yeah, sure. And of course, there are many levels of that as well. Like when we even say that about getting attention, our first reaction to that is like an ego level, where ego wants attention, but it could also be at a much deeper level where we need to get a parent's attention in order to get food or to get warm or to get whatever, we require. So there's many levels of requiring attention that may not be to do with just ego stuff, so yeah. But as adults, we say, well, if you want attention, we're talking about, some kind of ego thing, aren't we? Yeah.
Well, and I feel it more like if it's so primal, like
Yes.
like an amoeba
Yeah.
going toward food and attention.
Yeah. Just hanging out together. Yeah. Two jellyfish swimming beside each other. Yeah. Yeah.
I also find, that see me, hear me, feel me, just connect, connection. Yeah. And that's like, that is just so deep, and that is so important. It basically is that, like the whole like organism is like that's survival. Because as you said, we are, like in tribes and, like pack animals, and that instinct like is there.
Yep. And at another level, we're all, it's symbiotic relationship with nature and with everything and everybody, there is no actual separation.
Like you can't separate yourself, like you're breathing in everything what is around you, like,
Completely,
yeah,
yeah.
like sun, you can't separate yourself from sunshine, you can't separate yourself from light, from temperature. It's impossible. Like I was thinking, like you can't, even if you think you're in this body, you can't separate this body from environment. Even if you take this body out in complete vacuum, you're still in vacuum. You're not separated from a vacuum. You never separated.
Yeah. When does the air that you breathe in become you?
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
And then we're breathing out, and like all trees and everything absorbs that, and it gets, like up in the sky, and rain is falling. It's just like, it's like a cycle. It's cycle.
Yeah. I always get amused when people go, the words that they say belong to them. Like, how can you own something once it's out? It's part of everything, isn't it? Yeah.
Even if you take a word and break it down, like, okay, I was like, a word cold, say, for example, like I'm feeling cold. And if you take cold, COLD, it means nothing. It means nothing. There's no meaning behind cold. There is no such thing existing. It's just like, but because we have ingrained this language and every word means something, but if you don't know language, it has no meaning for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
love the
meaning
idea
is
that people
attached.
can make up a language. You know, kids
Mhm.
will invent a language and have words that they share the meaning of, but nobody else knows them. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
If you
Well,
break
there's so
down, like,
many different languages. You know, we have in Australia. There was the indigenous people lived in tribes. They called them mobs here, but there was thousands of them, and they all had their own language. Every one of them had their own language. And wow, what isn't that amazing that people can just invent a language and communicate with each other in a language that nobody else knows, you know? And there's so many different variations of that all over the world. People have different languages, you know? It's just incredible.
and then body language, another thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and of course, if we include sign language, but then without that, even there's just watching people's body attitude. Yeah,
Mhm. And
yeah,
like, I think that body language is very primal, what we recognize on subconscious level, like there is actually no cognitive understanding. But like when you're around other people and you see their movement, face expressions, like tone of voice and all, and you pick in all and subtle details, and that's all, like reflecting here. And you
yeah,
kind of,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Just
how's this
nodding our
going?
head and shaking our head and
Mhm.
smiling. Yeah, all of that stuff.
And
Yeah.
softening voice, or like making it sharper, louder, all this nuance is so interesting.
Mm. Yeah. If you're there, Aya, um, I won't ask you to say anything if you don't show your face. But yeah.
Can I say something
Does
without showing my face?
Yes, you can. Of course you can. We've been all night. I've been wondering if you're there. Yeah, you're welcome.
I am here, yes. I'm just always very busy, so it's a disturbing image maybe of me moving around.
Yeah, I'm
But
curious, of course. Yeah,
I'm just curious. So I just sit and listen and take in, what resonates and leave what doesn't, or be curious about what doesn't.
okay.
And that's really all I do.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, you're welcome to just talk even without showing your face at any time to be involved in these things that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
So have you found it interesting? Have you found it valuable in any way?
It is absolutely. I see a lot of suffering in the groups as well, and a lot of trying and seeking, and I think that overwhelms me a bit.
Yeah.
Just to observe how much suffering there is, and in a way, like you say, also all connected as one in that as well. And you're an amazing therapist. A lot of people get paid a lot of money to do what you're doing there too, just to hold the space. So yeah, no, it's great. And I'm just in a place I think where I'm more curious about the desire part, where there's things going on, very serious things going on, where I'm having to take some bold steps. And so for me, the last part would be, you guys were talking about, there's an observer and things are happening, but notice that that's not really you doing it, but things still have to happen. So sometimes I feel like, can I just sit back and do nothing? Is that, but things have to happen. Actions need to be taken. Decisions need to be made.
Yeah.
And that's where it's as if I'm trying to find an answer between, okay, what is the part where we just let it be, but then at the same time we have to do it as well.
Well, yeah, that's a really interesting one, and it's a tricky one. One of the I call it a koan. A koan that is really good value for you to consider is it how do you do not doing? Is it possible to do not doing? And if you do not doing, isn't it doing? So if you have a thought, an intention arises a thought that you call an intention arises for you to do something, and then the picture that you had that was your intention actually happens, and then the mind will come along and says, see, I did that. Is what the mind said an accurate reflection of what happened, or is it a story that's made up and overlaid over the happening? So when you walked across the room to sit in the chair that you're sitting in, I presume.
How did you know that?
I'm guessing.
I literally did that.
You did that?
Literally. So I'm like, oh, okay, are you seeing me?
No, I'm not seeing it. I'm just imagining it.
Good
But
one.
I'm asking you, if when you did, were you making the decision to put one foot in front of the other, and how you placed your foot, whether you put the ball of your foot down before the heel, or did you put the heel down first? And were you conscious of every step that you made, or did it all just happen? And only when you remember it happening could you say, oh, I did it.
Yeah, the latter.
Yes. So would you call that a doing? Or would you say that it was a happening that you describe as a doing?
Yeah, the latter too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a sense, what I hear as well is these things that are happening in my personal life where decisions have to be made and actions need to be taken. Some bold steps have to be made. It's like, it's all experience. So it's simply happening and then the next thing happens. So you just let it be for what it was rather than try to identify with that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Perfectly well done. So as a result of that, it's pointless to have a response to what happened that says that was good or bad. That's just there, but that's the kind of thing that happens where suffering comes from. Us saying oh, it should have been different to that. Well, it's done. It's finished. Why would we say it should have been different?
Yeah, that's there's no good or bad is something that I see more and more. It's just simply what happens, and you cannot know what's good or bad because you don't know what another outcome would have had.
That's right. And if it happened in a way that had outcomes that were of a certain nature, and we imagined that it could have happened differently, and so on, then we can actually learn from it. And so next time it happens, maybe it will happen differently according to how we thought it might have been different, simply because the idea arose that it could be different. But it might not be, and it might be. So either which way, it's just another happening. And we can say, oh, well, I learnt from it last time. So That's why it happened differently, but that's still just another story.
It's just another story, yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
likely,
but dropping those things is dropping the suffering as well. Little by little, you drop it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, that's
Come
a
back
great,
to present.
yeah, it's a good trigger if we find ourselves suffering, to recognize that we're telling ourselves stories to make that suffering happen.
Because as someone, I think it was Anna maybe earlier said, there's an addiction to it. Or it was not Anna, but the other lady, the older lady, who left. Short hair, where she said, you know, it feels like an addiction, and that I was like, yeah, well, that's what it is. You know, the mind is very much addicted to the, because I'm seeing this more and more. With certain things, I have the observer very faint, almost as a separate, and this is another story I'm telling, but here I sense the observer, and then the other one is much stronger, pushing through the drama or the suffering, and the observer is very clearly there too. Be like, you know what you're doing, and it's a much softer, neutral, kinder, but very faint, and the suffering part, the one that wants to, you know, the fight, the drama, the whatever it is the stronger, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's very subtle, isn't it? And we can feel more alive when we're suffering than when we don't sometimes, and so that can be part of why we might get addicted to that kind of thing.
It's the identity again.
The complexity of it is infinite. Yeah, it can be really hard to see why we respond in a way that we do. And we don't need to. We don't need to, you know, to go into that level of detail most of the time. Yeah.
It's constant letting go.
Yes, absolutely. And we can get addicted to that too. That's kind of is there a good addiction? I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm
Yes, I
glad
think
we
I've
spoke
been
up.
on and I think I've been on and off here for how long? 2 years maybe, and
Right.
never said a word.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you
Done-
spoke. Yeah, that's good. And it sounds like you're in a really good place, actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I always imagine that, you know, that you're not showing your face because you're, say, self-conscious about something. And I always go on. Yeah.
No, if something's going online, then I don't want that because of my private situation. That's why.
Yeah,
Mainly.
sure. Okay, I respect that. Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, and it's good that you spoke up, because other people will identify and get value from hearing what you've said as well. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I had a story in my mind that I'm some really famous celebrity from Hollywood, you know.
Yes, yes.
I can't show my face because of that.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, well, you feel free to speak up any time. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, it's getting it's past midnight here, so I'm going to go to bed. I've got another meeting in the morning. Okay, so I'll.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Very, very welcome. It has been a good meeting. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vince. Thank you. And thank you everyone for holding space.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, see you later.
Bye.